probably by about 9:30, 9:45, I mean, the water was 3 or 4 feet deep, covering the whole side of the mountain, starting to come up the side of the house. John peeked out the window, a back door, and yelled, "Everybody get inside." Up on the top of the hill was what we now know is a debris flow, about 300 feet wide, about 60 feet tall. And whenever I very first saw it, it was probably about a quarter mile up the mountain away from us. And in less than 3 seconds, it was hitting the side of the house. And the entire house just imploded. And I don't mean that like floating away that you see with other homes. It exploded like you put the whole house into a blender. The last few seconds before it hit are very, very fuzzy. And then next thing you know, it's dark, getting hit by everything from roof material, trees, rocks, and moving very fast. A force of power that's just can't be explained. Just a couple of seconds into it happening, there's just kind of acceptance of death. You know that you're dead.
I went down. The floor actually fell out from underneath me, and I went down and into mud and then water, and was hitting all kinds of things along the way. And that's where I was having a lot of impact on my legs.
And then just all of a sudden, it stopped. It's just this abrupt stop. And as soon as it stopped, I was immediately coherent, and I just looked up and the entire side of the mountain was just gone. My leg was trapped. I immediately assessed the whole top of my hand was completely flayed open and bleeding profusely. I worked my way out of the rubble and got myself free. And I could hear my neighbor John yelling. And I was yelling back to him, trying to locate where his voice was while I was working myself free. And as soon as I got my leg free, I stood up and I turned around, and about 20 feet behind me, I saw Lindsay laying on top of a tree, in shock, soaking wet from head to toe. And I yelled out to her to be sure that she could hear me and was coherent enough, and then started trying to work my way over to where John was. I found John about 20 feet to the side of me, buried all the way up to his neck in debris, unable to move, and blood, dirt all over his face. Lindsay immediately responded and tried to start moving towards where I had found John at. As soon as she stood up to move towards the pile, the side of her leg completely just came out. Like you saw the bottom half of her leg come out about that far, as if it was just fully separated. But we eventually got him out, and the whole time he was screaming for his fiancée, Julie. We could not locate her at this point. In that moment, there was only so much I could do. At this point, we're fighting the risk of hypothermia, being barely clothed, soaking wet the way that we are. So I got Lindsay real slowly up the hill to a cabin that I had saw that had barely escaped the edge of the debris flow. I broke into it and found a first aid kit inside of the bathroom, a very basic one.
We're estimating it was like 12 to 15 hours before Swift Water Rescue was able to make it over to us. That we heard the whistles, and we were like, oh my goodness, we're being rescued. So it took them some time. They walked from the bottom up to where we were because they couldn't drive, and had to cut down trees and make rubble bridges, and we're so grateful for all the work that they did and finding out all that they did. It's amazing that they got to us as quickly as they did. So they strung a wire across the river. They obviously had to find the safest place to do so and find trees in the midst of all of the devastation that were strong enough to hold everything. So there was this like metal cage basically with no top on it that they put us in and kind of strung us across the river. And they let us know there's going to be a good stretch of time where we're not with you because you're going to be going over the water.